No! I did not concentrate. I thought about death as a word, and not death as a thing, and now the thing is coming closer to me. I check back on the knife. Is it near? Yes, of course it is. The ghost trail of the outlines shows that the knife has moved, carrying the boy with it. The water behind me has surged. Hearts have beaten. Blood has flowed. The end is closer. I stayed in the sick bay all afternoon. I think Miss Bush had forgotten I was there, and no one else looked in. I could have gone home. I could have gone back to class. Heh, it was metal work in the afternoon, and I don't mind that. I've been making a car out of cast-off bits of metal, just the crap lying around, and Mr. Robinson thought it was quite good. Mr. Robinson was one of the teachers who was nice if you stood on his good side. But if you did something wrong, say, messed up a lathe or didn't pay attention when he was telling us about safety, then he could turn savage. So I could have done either of those, but I was liking it here in the quiet room, even it smelled a bit of old sick. And if I'd gone home, I'd only have to explain things to Mum. I liked waiting to hear the bells at the end of each period, and the other sounds, the rush of feet, the loud voices. Usually the space in between the lessons is a time of danger, when someone would smash you into a corridor wall, or trip you up, or take your bag and fling it down the stairwell. But I was safe from all that, and it was pleasant to think about going around to hang out with Shane and his friends. Pleasant, but also a bit scary. Whenever I tried to imagine what we'd do together, everything broke down. I didn't know them at all. Didn't know what they'd want to talk about. I was always shy with new people. Sometimes, with new people, I'd clam up. Sometimes they'd say too much. There are all kinds of ways it could go wrong. They might think I was boring, or I might come out with stuff they thought was stupid. I decided I wouldn't go. No, I had to go. Things weren't right in my life. I knew that. Ever since coming to this school, things had been wrong. No, not going wrong. Going off. Like something forgotten at the back of the fridge. I don't know how or why, but I had an instinct that Shane was the way out of things, a way back from the edge. So, when the end of the day bell rang, I waited a few minutes just for things to calm down outside, and then I got up from the sick bed and set off home. There were still a few kids messing around in the playground by the back entrance. I usually went up the front way, because there were more teachers around, and it felt safer, but I was in a hurry, and the back way was quicker. They jumped me a couple of meters outside the gates. They'd been hiding behind the wall of the social club. It was Biller and mates. They grabbed an arm each and dragged me over to the grass down toward the beck. The beck is the stream that flows past the school. It's dirty and stinks, and it gets rats there. My dad says it's worse when he was a kid, that if you fell in it you'd die, not from drowning because it wasn't deep enough, unless someone held you down, but by being poisoned. I knew more or less what was in store for me. They were going to chuck me in, something like that. I thought it was because Bates wanted to get revenge. I mean, for me pulling the stupid scissors on him. And it must have been frustrating that Roth didn't smack me earlier. Weird how Roth had protected me. But he wasn't here now, and these two were going to make me sorry, even if I thought about standing up to them. Except Roth was there. I saw him when we got closer. There were two steep banks down to the water, so he'd been hidden from where I was. He had his back to us and was sitting on a coat. Not his. He was wearing a leather jacket. So it must have belonged to Bates or Miller. I'm not really into fashion, but I could tell that Roth's jacket wasn't that cool. It wasn't cool at all, really. It looked tough, though. I mean, tough like an armadillo skin. Got him, Roth, said Miller. He came out late. Been hiding somewhere? Little poof. I wasn't hiding, I said. Then Bates twisted the arm he was holding behind my back. It hurt. But I didn't cry out. It would take more than that to make me cry out. But I was afraid. If it had just been Miller and Bates, I would have known what was in store for me. Like I said, they would have pushed me into the water, chucked bricks at me to keep me there for a bit, then they'd have run off laughing at the great joke of it all. I could endure that. I'd endured worse. But with Roth, you just didn't know. I felt my guts turn soft inside me. He turned around to look over his shoulder. He was so massive the movement was awkward, as if the muscle got in the way. "What you playing at?" I thought he was talking to me, and I was trying to think of an answer when Miller said, "Nothing. Just like you said. Asked him to." "Doesn't look like you asked him. Looks like you told him." "Yeah, we told him, but—" "Let him go." He was facing forward again, looking at the water's bubbling brown scum. "Come here." A hand at my back pushed me hard. "Have a sit down." The grass was wet. There was no question of sharing the coat. I felt the wetness seep through my trousers. "Sorry about them nutters." "I just said to ask you to come along for a little chat." "It's all right. They didn't bother me." He turned toward me, giving a full, black-eyed stare. "Maybe they should." Was that a threat? Or was he saying I should stand up to them more? Up to his own henchmen? I shrugged. This was getting weirder. What did he want with me? Part of me still thought this was a setup. That any second he was going to join in with Miller and Bates and chuck me into the water, or maybe just smash my face in. And then I saw that Miller and Bates had wandered off along the bank. There was a narrow path, not planned, just made by thousands of kids' feet. Miller had a long stick and was jabbing it in the mud at the bottom of the beck, stirring up old filth. Clouds of greenish muck floated, billowing to where we were sitting, bringing a stink, like some foul mix of egg and shit. "I wonder about them, too," Ross said in a friendly, confiding sort of way. "You're right to," I replied. I couldn't trust him with anything important. Couldn't trust him to tell me what they had for breakfast, unless they were still eating it. That made me laugh. I felt myself getting sucked into something over my head. "And the thing is," he said, turning those black eyes on me once more, "I've got a little job I need doing." "A job?" I smiled weakly. "Yeah, nothing much. A little delivery." "What is it?" "Don't panic. Not heavy, just stick it in your bag." It was then that I noticed for the first time that there was a parcel on the ground next to Ross. It was the size of a shoebox, wrapped in brown paper and covered all over again in Scotch tape. There was something slightly insane about the Scotch tape. It was everywhere, wrapped around the package like bandages around a mummy. "I'm not sure I can—" "Look, here's something to make it worth your while." He felt in his pocket and held out a tenner. I didn't reach out to take it from his hand. The thing with Roth was that when he was mad, his face did the opposite of what you'd expect. Rather than showing lines of rage, his face became more blank. For a second, that happened now, the human lines on his face smoothing away to an implacable machine, soulless. But only for a second. Then he grinned and shoved the note into the breast pocket of my blazer. "Good lad," he said. Had my face betrayed me? Told him in response to his own unspoken threat that I would do whatever he wanted? I don't know, but I think that if he'd really tried to force me, I might have resisted, or might have said yes and then thrown the package away. But his assumption that I'd agreed, his acceptance of it as natural, as inevitable, destroyed my will to resist. I told you, Roth was deep. But I had one last feeble go at refusing. "Can't you get one of them to take it?" Look at them, he said, and I followed his line of vision. Bates had hold of a stick, and had dredged up some of the weed and slime at the bottom, and was waving it at Miller, the two of them whooping and laughing. A cretin and a nigger, too dumb to fart and walk at the same time. The casual brutality of Roth's language stunned me, and I hated it, and hated him. I didn't think even Roth would say nigger like that, and as if it was a word like idiot, one you could drop into a conversation, but it was another part of his plan to draw me in. For a second, I was part of the inner circle, just me and Roth. The safest part of the hurricane is the eye. And hell has its circles. And then my voice said, "Where do you want it taken?" That was it. I was committed. "That's my boy. Up to the sports ground, the one at Templemore. You can take the bus up." "But all the Templemore kids hang out there." "But very astute. But they'll see me." Templemore High School is nearly as rough as ours, and there had always been trouble between us. Sometimes it was war, sometimes an uneasy peace. Look, it's all cool with them. In fact, it's one of them you'll be dropping this off with. Black kid, called Goddard. They call him Gatto. It's something he wants." "Like what?" "Seriously, Paul, you really don't want to know. Just a package." I could guess. Drugs. I felt sick. But there was no way out now. Well, there was a way out, but I couldn't take it. I was already too far down the path. Drugs weren't big at our school. A while back there had been a serious problem with glue and solvents, but one kid died with a can of lighter fluid up his nose, and that kept things quiet for a while. A few of the older kids talked about dope and speed, but I'd never heard of anything worse than that. "You look a bit peaky." "I'm telling you, there's nothing to worry about. And it's one little favor. After this, you and me, we're mates, all right?" I didn't want to be mates with Roth. I didn't want to hang around with him in the netters like Bates and Miller. But I did want something from him. Something hard to put your finger on. I'd already felt it today. It was as if Roth put out fields, like radiation or something. And there were two different kinds. There was the one that killed you, the death field, and the one that protected you. If you were in that field, then you were okay. You were safe. Safe from anything. But it was really hard to know sometimes where one field ended and the other began. He handed me the package. It was heavier than I expected. It's funny, sometimes when things are heavier than you expect, it's a good feeling. And this should have been a good feeling now, because surely this was too heavy to be drugs. It weighed as much as a cricket ball. More, maybe. "When shall I take it?" "Now." "Now? But I've got to go somewhere else." "That can wait." "No, but I didn't carry on, because I could easily get from Templemore to Halton. It just meant I couldn't go home first, and I knew that I didn't have the strength to tell a convincing lie to Roth. And so again I asked him, "Tell us what it is, Roth." And Roth put his hand on the back of my neck and squeezed and pulled me toward him at the same time. The pain wasn't that bad, but I knew it was a message. The message was, I can hurt you whenever I want to. "Ask me that again, and you'll find out," he said, and that filled me with more dread than anything so far. And then he showed me his teeth. This close I could see the flat tops. They looked like they'd been worn down, worn smooth. "I'll grind your bones to make my bread." It came into my head like that. "Get going, or you'll miss him." I nodded and began to get up, and then Roth pulled me back down. "But, just to be safe," he said in a low voice, "you better take something. for self-defense. Then, keeping eye contact, he put something metal in my hand. I looked down. It was the scissors. I heard wild laughter. Miller and Bates had appeared from nowhere, enjoying the joke.